The human diplomat Greg Collins drops to his knees before Klingon Ambassador Ava, his heart racing with excitement. The emergency diplomatic summit on Earth, broadcast live across the galaxy, erupts into chaos. Alien delegates gasp and murmur, their shocked faces displayed on massive view screens surrounding the Grand Assembly Hall. Ava's fierce eyes widen in surprise. Her demand for submission, intended to humiliate humanity, backfires spectacularly. Greg's eager compliance catches her off guard, his willingness to kneel triggering an ancient Klingon mating ritual. The air crackles with tension as the implications of this act ripple through the assembly. Earth's government officials scramble behind the scenes, their frantic whispers barely audible over the growing commotion. The human-Klingon alliance, already strained by recent border disputes, now teeters on the brink of collapse. Greg feels the weight of interstellar peace settle on his shoulders as he remains kneeling, acutely aware of Ava's towering presence above him. In the Klingon section of the assembly, a group of hardline warriors clench their fists, eyes burning with rage. They view Ava's acceptance of Greg's submission as a betrayal of their warrior culture. Whispered plans of assassination begin to form, targeting both Ava and Greg. News of the incident spreads like wildfire across the galaxy. Humans on distant planets and space stations find themselves facing increased hostility from other alien races. Suspicious glances and hostile gestures greet human diplomats and traitors alike, as humanity's standing in the interstellar community shifts dramatically. Greg rises slowly, meeting Ava's gaze. He sees confusion, intrigue, and a hint of desire in her eyes. The secret submissive in him thrills at the prospect of serving this stunning and fierce Klingon woman. Yet he's acutely aware of the diplomatic minefield he must now navigate. Earth's president approaches, flanked by advisors. She pulls Greg aside, her voice low and urgent. "Collins, you need to fix this. Our strongest intergalactic alliance is at stake. Whatever it takes, make it work with Ambassador Ava." Greg nods, his mind racing. He must balance his newfound relationship with Ava, his own desires, and the fate of humanity's place in the galaxy. As he turns back to face the assembly, he catches sight of the hardline Klingons glaring at him with murderous intent. The emergency summit, meant to address border disputes, has now become a catalyst for a galaxy-wide reassessment of humanity's role in the interstellar community. Economic treaties hang in the balance, military alliances waver, and the political landscape shifts with each passing moment. Greg takes a deep breath, preparing to address the assembly. The fate of Earth's political, economic, and military standing rests on his next words. As he opens his mouth to speak, he realizes that his personal desires and humanity's future have become inextricably intertwined in ways he never could have imagined. Greg's voice rang out clear and steady, addressing the assembly with a diplomat's practiced ease. "Esteemed delegates, what we've witnessed today is not a moment of weakness, but an opportunity for unprecedented unity." As he spoke, Greg felt Ava's intense gaze upon him. The Klingon ambassador's expression had shifted from confusion to intrigue, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of respect and curiosity. "The act you've seen is not just a human kneeling before a Klingon, but a symbol of our willingness to bridge the gap between our cultures," Greg continued, his words carefully chosen to navigate the delicate political landscape. The assembly hall buzzed with murmurs, some approving, others skeptical. Earth's president nodded encouragingly, while the hardline Klingon warriors glowered from their section. As Greg concluded his impromptu speech, a message flashed across the screens surrounding the hall. "Emergency session adjourned. All delegates report to respective embassy for further instructions." The assembly dispersed in a flurry of activity. Greg found himself whisked away by Earth's security detail, Ava similarly surrounded by her own guards. Their eyes met briefly across the emptying hall, an unspoken connection forming between them. Hours later, Greg sat in a secure briefing room within the Earth Embassy. The president, flanked by her top advisors, faced him with a grim expression. "Collins, your quick thinking may have saved us from immediate disaster, but the situation remains precarious," she said, her tone grave. "We're assigning you to a joint diplomatic mission with Ambassador Ava. Your objective, salvage the human-Klingon alliance and prevent a galactic political meltdown." Greg nodded, his heart racing at the prospect of working closely with Ava. I understand, Madam President. What's our first move? You'll be departing immediately on the USS Harmony, she replied, gesturing to a holographic display of a sleek starship. It's our latest, designed to showcase human-Klingon cooperation. Your first stop is Nexus Prime. As Greg absorbed the information, the door slid open. Ava strode in, her presence commanding attention. The Klingon ambassador's eyes locked onto Greg, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Ambassador, Greg greeted her, rising to his feet. Diplomat Collins, Ava responded, her voice a low growl that sent a shiver down Greg's spine. It seems we are to be partners in this endeavor. The tension in the room was palpable as human and Klingon officials exchanged wary glances. Greg, however, felt a surge of excitement mingled with apprehension. Within hours, Greg and Ava found themselves aboard the USS Harmony, the ship's engines humming as it prepared for departure. They stood side by side on the observation deck, watching as Earth grew smaller in the view screen. I never expected our encounter to lead to this, Ava said, breaking the silence. Greg turned to her, studying her profile. Neither did I, but I'm glad it did. Ava's eyes met his, a fierce intensity burning within them. You intrigue me, human. Your submission, it awakened something in me. Greg felt his pulse quicken. And you've awakened something in me, Ambassador. As the USS Harmony jumped to warp speed, Greg and Ava began to navigate the complexities of their new relationship. Their conversations ranged from diplomatic strategies to personal histories, each revelation bringing them closer together. Days passed in a blur of strategy sessions and cultural exchanges. Greg found himself drawn to Ava's strength and honor, while she admired his quick wit and adaptability. Their growing bond did not go unnoticed by the crew, who watched with a mixture of fascination and concern. As they approached Nexus Prime, Greg and Ava stood before a mirror, adjusting their formal attire for their presentation to the Galactic Council. Remember, Greg said, straightening Ava's ceremonial sash, we need to present a united front. Ava nodded, her hand lingering on Greg's shoulder. Together, we will show them the strength of our alliance. The USS Harmony docked at Nexus Prime's orbital station, a bustling hub of interstellar activity. As Greg and Ava disembarked, they were met with a cacophony of reactions. Some alien delegates approached with warm greetings, while others kept their distance, whispering among themselves. The Galactic Council chambers were a marvel of alien architecture, a vast amphitheater surrounded by shimmering force fields. Greg and Ava took their positions at the center, facing the assembled representatives of countless civilizations. As they began their presentation, highlighting the benefits of human-Klingon cooperation, a commotion erupted from the back of the chamber. A group of Klingon warriors, led by a scarred veteran Greg recognized as Krotok, burst through the security barriers. Death to the traitors, Krotok roared, brandishing a batleth. In an instant, the chamber erupted into chaos. Greg's diplomatic instincts kicked in as he shouted warnings to the council members. Beside him, Ava sprang into action, her combat training evident in every fluid movement. Greg ducked under a wild swing from one of the attackers, using his momentum to flip the assailant over his shoulder. Ava's batleth sang through the air as she engaged Krotok in a fierce duel. Working in tandem, Greg and Ava formed a protective barrier around the most vulnerable council members. Their synchronized movements spoke of a deep, instinctive trust that transcended their brief time together. As security forces finally broke through to subdue the attackers, Greg found himself back-to-back with Ava, both breathing heavily from the exertion. You fight well, for a human, Ava said, a note of admiration in her voice. Greg grinned, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. And you're not so bad yourself, for a Klingon. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something shifted between them. The heat of battle had forged a bond stronger than any diplomatic agreement. As the dust settled and the council members were safely evacuated, Greg and Ava received an urgent communication from their superiors. Their mission parameters had changed dramatically in light of the attack. This goes beyond simple diplomatic tensions. The Earth president's hologram flickered before them. We're dealing with a coordinated effort to destabilize interspecies cooperation. The Klingon High Council representative nodded gravely. Our intelligence suggests similar extremist groups are forming on multiple worlds. You two are uniquely positioned to combat this threat. Greg and Ava exchanged glances, understanding the weight of their new assignment. They were no longer just diplomats, but the front line in a covert war against those who would tear the galaxy apart. As they prepared to board the USS Harmony once more, Greg felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Their destination, the lawless Outer Rim, where the heart of the extremist network was said to reside. Ava placed a hand on Greg's arm, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through him. Whatever challenges we face, she said, her voice low and intense, we face them together. Greg nodded, his drive strengthened by her presence. As they walked up the boarding ramp, he knew that their journey was a long way to go. The USS Harmony's engines roared to life, ready to carry them into the unknown depths of space and the even more uncharted territories of their evolving relationship. As the USS Harmony's engines roared to life, ready to carry them into the unknown depths of space, Greg and Ava stood side by side on the bridge, their eyes fixed on the vast expanse before them. The journey through the Outer Rim was fraught with tension. Greg and Ava spent long hours poring over intelligence reports, strategizing their approach to combat the extremist threat. The ship's crew, a mix of humans and Klingons, worked together with growing efficiency, inspired by the example set by their leaders. As they navigated through a particularly dense region of space, alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. The tactical officer's voice cut through the chaos. "Captain, we're detecting a distress signal from within the nearby asteroid belt." Greg and Ava exchanged a quick glance. "On screen," Greg commanded. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a battered Klingon bird of prey, its hull breached in multiple places. It drifted helplessly among the tumbling asteroids, its life support systems clearly failing. "Life signs?" Ava asked, her voice tight with concern. "Faint but present," the science officer reported, detecting 5 Klingon biosignatures. Greg's mind raced, weighing the risks against their mission objectives. He turned to Ava, seeing the same conflict in her eyes. "We can't ignore this," he said softly. Ava nodded, her heart made. "Agreed, this is an opportunity to demonstrate the strength of our alliance." Within minutes, Greg and Ava led a rescue team to the transporter room. As they materialized aboard the stricken vessel, the acrid smell of burnt circuitry assaulted their senses. Emergency lighting cast an eerie red glow throughout the corridors. "Life support is critical," Greg reported, checking his tricorder. "We need to move fast." They split into 2 teams, quickly searching the ship. Greg's team found 3 injured warriors in the engine room, working desperately to restore power. Ava's voice crackled over the comm. "We've located the other 2 in the medical bay. One is critically injured." As they worked to stabilize and evacuate the Klingon crew, Greg noticed Ava's demeanor change. She stared at one of the injured officers, a female, with a mix of shock and recognition. "Kalara." Ava's voice was barely above a whisper. The injured Klingon's eyes fluttered open, focusing on Ava with difficulty. "Sister," she growled weakly, "I never thought I'd see you again." Greg's eyebrows shot up in surprise. He'd known Ava had family, but she rarely spoke of them. The tension between the sisters was palpable, even in this dire situation. Kalara's gaze shifted to Greg, her eyes narrowing. "You bring humans to our rescue? Have you no honor left, Ava?" Before Ava could respond, the ship lurched violently. Greg's tricorder screamed warnings. "The asteroid field is becoming unstable. We need to evacuate now." As they rushed to beam back to the Harmony, massive chunks of rock began colliding around them. The transporter chief's voice crackled with interference. "I can't get a lock. The electromagnetic interference from the asteroid collisions is too strong." Greg's mind raced. He turned to Ava and Kalara. "We need to use the bird of prey's engines to navigate out of the field. Can you get them online?" Kalara scoffed. "Our engines are dead, human. What do you propose we do?" Greg's eyes lit up with an idea. "Not dead, dormant. If we reroute power from non-essential systems and use the Harmony's deflector dish to create a resonance field, We might be able to jumpstart your warp core. Ava nodded, understanding dawning on her face. It could work. Kalara, we need your help. For a moment, it seemed Kalara would refuse, but another violent shake of the ship made her decision for her. Very well, she growled. What followed was a frantic race against time. Greg coordinated with the Harmony's engineering team, while Ava and Kalara worked on the bird of prey systems. Their diverse skills melded seamlessly. Greg's innovative approach to human technology complemented the sisters' intimate knowledge of Klingon systems. As a particularly large asteroid loomed in their view screen, Greg's makeshift solution came to life. The bird of prey's engine sputtered, then roared to full power. With Ava at the helm and Kalara manning tactical, they executed a series of daring maneuvers, weaving through the asteroid field with breathtaking precision. The Harmony matched their course, extending its shields to provide additional protection. In a final, heart-stopping moment, both ships burst free of the asteroid field, the last of the rocky projectiles shattering harmlessly against their combined shields. As they docked with the Harmony, Greg noticed a change in Kalara's demeanor. The hostility in her eyes had been replaced by a grudging respect. Your quick thinking saved us all, she admitted, her voice gruff but sincere. Once aboard the Harmony, as the medical team tended to the injured Klingons, Kalara pulled Greg and Ava aside. Her face was grim as she spoke. I was part of an undercover operation to infiltrate the extremist factions. I was discovered and left for dead. Greg leaned in, his interest piqued. Did you manage to gather any intelligence before you were compromised? Kalara nodded, her eyes gleaming with a warrior's fire. I have coordinates to a secret base. The leaders of various anti-alliance groups are planning to meet there. Ava's eyes widened. This could be our chance to strike at the heart of the extremist movement. As the implications of this new information sank in, Greg felt a surge of excitement and apprehension. He looked at Ava, then at Kalara, aware of the complex dynamics at play. Looks like our mission just got a lot more interesting, he said, a hint of a smile playing at his lips. The USS Harmony adjusted its course, now bound for the secret base. As they journeyed deeper into the outer rim, Greg knew that the true test of their alliance and their relationship lay ahead. The challenges they'd faced so far were just the beginning. With Kalara's intelligence and the combined strength of their crew, they had a chance to make a real difference. But the path ahead was fraught with danger, and the stakes had never been higher. But the path ahead was fraught with danger, and the stakes had never been greater. As they approached the coordinates of the secret base, tension filled the bridge of the USS Harmony. Greg, Ava, and Kalara stood at the tactical console, reviewing the plan one last time. Remember, Greg said, his voice low, our primary objective is to gather intelligence and prevent the attack on the colony. We go in quiet, fast, and leave a trail of broken bones behind us, Kalara finished, a fierce grin on her face. Ava shot her sister a warning look. We stick to the plan. No unnecessary risks. The Harmony dropped out of warp, cloaking immediately. As they neared the asteroid that housed the secret compound, Greg felt his heart rate quicken. This was it. The trio beamed down to a secluded area just outside the facility's sensor range. Moving swiftly and silently, they made their way to a side entrance. Kalara's intelligence proved invaluable as she bypassed the security systems with practiced ease. Once inside, they moved through dimly lit corridors, the hum of machinery growing louder as they approached the heart of the compound. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, red warning lights bathing everything in an eerie glow. We've been made, Greg hissed, undrawing his phaser. Kalara's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Then let's give them something to truly fear. Before Greg or Ava could stop her, Kalara charged down the corridor towards the main security hub, her battle cry echoing off the walls. The sound of phaser fire and shouting quickly followed. Damn it, Ava growled. She turned to Greg, conflict evident in her eyes. We need to stick to the plan. Greg nodded, his mind racing. Kalara's creating a diversion. We can use this to our advantage. The command center, that's where the leaders will be. They moved swiftly through the chaos, Kalara's distraction drawing most of the security forces away from their position. As they approached the command center, they encountered a sophisticated biometric security system. DNA scanner, Greg muttered, examining the panel. It needs both human and Klingon input to grant access. Ava stepped forward, her shoulder brushing against Greg's as they faced the scanner together. On three, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. As they placed their hands on the scanner simultaneously, Greg felt a jolt of electricity that had nothing to do with the security system. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the chaos around them faded away. The door hissed open, breaking the spell. They entered the command center, phasers at the ready, only to find themselves face to face with the last people they expected to see. Admiral Thorne? Greg's voice was filled with disbelief as he recognized his former mentor. Kavag, Ava growled, her eyes fixed on the respected Klingon elder standing beside the admiral. The room was filled with high-ranking officials from both human and Klingon governments. The realization of their betrayal hit Greg like a physical blow. Stand down, Gregory, Admiral Thorne said, his voice calm but tinged with disappointment. You don't understand what's at stake here. I understand perfectly, Greg replied, his phaser unwavering. You're planning to attack a joint human-Klingon colony. Why? To sabotage the Alliance? Kava stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Ava. The Alliance is an abomination. It weakens both our peoples. We seek to restore the natural order. Ava's grip on her weapon tightened. By murdering innocent colonists? There is no honor in that, Kava. As the standoff intensified, Greg noticed Admiral Thorne's hand moving slowly towards a console. In that instant, he realized the true danger they faced. They have a dead man's switch, Greg warned Ava. If we make a move, they'll release information that could destabilize both our governments. The tension in the room reached a fever pitch. Greg's mind raced, searching for a diplomatic solution, but Ava had other ideas. Kava, she called out, her voice ringing with authority, I challenge you to ritual combat. Face me or forfeit your honor forever. The room erupted into chaos. Kava's eyes widened in shock while the other leaders shouted in protest. In the confusion, Greg saw his chance. He lunged for the communications console, his fingers flying over the controls as he sent a coded message to the Harmony, but his actions didn't go unnoticed. Gregory! Admiral Thorne's voice boomed across the room. Step away from that console. Greg turned to face his former mentor, his heart heavy with the weight of betrayal. I'm sorry, Admiral, but I can't let you do this. As Thorne advanced on him, Greg braced himself for the fight of his life. Across the room, Ava and Kava circled each other, the ancient rites of Klingon combat about to play out amidst the high-tech surroundings of the command center. The door burst open, and Kalara stormed in, her clothes singed and a wild look in her eyes. She took in the scene before her sister facing off against a respected elder, Greg squaring up against a human admiral, and the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance. For a moment, Kalara hesitated, torn between her Klingon upbringing and the new perspectives she'd gained. Then, with a roar that would have made her ancestors proud, she made her choice. The command center erupted into a whirlwind of action. Fists flew, bodies slammed against consoles, and the air crackled with the energy of fired phasers. Greg, Ava, and Kalara fought not just for their lives, but for the future of human-Klingon relations. As the battle raged on, Greg caught glimpses of the viewscreen behind them. The USS Harmony was on the move, racing to intercept the planned attack on the colony. The crew, humans and Klingons working in perfect harmony, represented everything they were fighting for in this moment. Greg ducked under a wild swing from Admiral Thorne, his legs shaking from the physical and emotional toll of fighting his former mentor. Nearby, Ava and Kava were locked in a fierce duel, their batleths singing through the air. Kalara fought like a woman possessed, taking on multiple opponents at once. The outcome of this conflict would shape the future of the galaxy. As Greg parried another blow from Thorne, he knew that whatever happened next would test the limits of their newfound alliance and the bonds they had forged along the way. With a surge of adrenaline, Greg spun away from Thorne's grasp, using the momentum to throw his former mentor off balance. In that split second, he caught sight of Ava locked in fierce combat with Kava, their batleths clashing in a deadly dance. Ava moved with a grace and power that took Greg's breath away. Her recent experiences had honed her skills, transforming her into a formidable warrior. Kava, despite his years of experience, found himself on the defensive against Ava's relentless assault. Greg refocused on his own battle, ducking under Thorn's wild swing. He saw an opening and seized it, using a combination of human boxing and Klingon grappling techniques Ava had taught him. With a swift series of strikes, he managed to disarm Thorn and pin him against a console. "It's over, Admiral," Greg said, his voice heavy with regret. Across the room, Ava delivered the final, decisive blow to Kava. The Klingon elder stumbled backward, his batleth clattering to the ground. Ava stood over him, her chest heaving, eyes blazing with triumph. "You have lost, Kava," she declared. "Your extremist views have no place in our future." The room fell silent as the remaining conspirators, seeing their leaders defeated, lowered their weapons. Kalara, who had been fighting off multiple opponents, paused to survey the scene. Her eyes darted between Greg, Ava, and the subdued extremist leaders. In that moment of stillness, Kalara made her choice. She strode purposefully across the room to stand beside Greg and Ava. "I stand with them," she announced, her voice ringing with conviction. "The strength of our peoples lies in unity, not division." With Kalara's support, Greg and Ava quickly secured the remaining extremists. Greg raced to the communications array, his fingers flying over the controls as he compiled a comprehensive data package exposing the full extent of the plot. "Transmitting to Earth and Kronos now," he called out, initiating the data transfer that would send shockwaves through both governments. As the information streamed out across subspace, Ava activated the compound's internal communication system. "USS Harmony, this is Commander Ava. The compound is secure. Transmit our coordinates to the authorities and prepare for prisoner transfer." The view screen flickered to life, showing the Harmony engaged in battle with the extremist forces that had been en route to attack the colony. Greg, Ava, and Kalara watched in awe as the ship's crew, humans and Klingons working in perfect synchronization, systematically neutralized the threat. As the immediate danger passed, the reality of their situation began to sink in. Greg looked at Ava, seeing the same mix of exhaustion and exhilaration he felt mirrored in her eyes. "We did it," he said softly, allowing himself a small smile. Ava nodded, her hand resting on the hilt of her batleth. "We have won this battle, but the war for hearts and minds is not nearly finished." Before they could discuss further, the compound's communication system crackled to life. "This is Admiral Chen of Starfleet Command. We've received your data transmission and are dispatching teams to your location immediately. Well done, Commander Taylor. Commander Ava. Your actions today may have saved the Alliance." As Greg acknowledged the transmission, he noticed a flurry of incoming messages from various news outlets across both Earth and Kronos. The story of their mission was spreading rapidly, their names and faces broadcast across the galaxy. Kalara approached them, a rare look of respect in her eyes. "Your partnership has proven stronger than I anticipated. Perhaps there is hope for this alliance after all." The sound of transporters filled the air as teams of Starfleet and Klingon Defense Force personnel materialized in the command center. As the prisoners were led away, Greg found himself face to face with Captain Lorak of the USS Harmony. "Commander Taylor, Commander Ava," Lorak said, his voice filled with pride. "Your actions have not only secured the safety of the colony, but have also set an example for interspecies cooperation that will resonate throughout the quadrant." As the captain spoke, Greg felt the weight of their accomplishments settling on his shoulders. He glanced at Ava, seeing the same realization dawning in her eyes. They were no longer just two officers on a mission. They had become symbols of a new era in human-Klingon relations. Their moment of reflection was interrupted by the arrival of a high-ranking Starfleet admiral and a Klingon High Council member. The two leaders approached Greg and Ava with an air of urgency. "Commander Taylor, Commander Ava," the admiral began, "in light of your exceptional service and the unique position you now occupy, we have a new assignment for you both." The Klingon counselor nodded in agreement. "You are to embark on a diplomatic tour of key worlds throughout the galaxy. Your mission, to showcase the strength of human-Klingon cooperation and lay the groundwork for a more inclusive interstellar community. Greg and Ava exchanged glances, the implications of this new mission sinking in. They had faced danger together, fought side by side, and now stood on the brink of an even greater challenge. As preparations for their departure began, Greg found a quiet moment alone with Ava. The din of activity faded into the background as they stood close, their voices low. "Are you ready for this?" Greg asked, searching Ava's face. Ava's eyes met his, filled with willpower and something deeper that made Greg's heart race. "Together," she said simply, "we can face anything." As they turned to face the bustling command center, now a hive of diplomatic activity, Greg felt a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but with Ava by his side, he was ready to face whatever the galaxy might throw at them. As they turned to face the bustling command center, Greg's communicator chirped. He tapped it, listening intently to the message. "It seems our new assignment starts immediately," he said to Ava, his voice a mix of excitement and trepidation. "We're being transferred to the USS Harmony. She's been refitted for our diplomatic tour." Ava nodded, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Then let us not waste time. The galaxy awaits." Within hours, Greg and Ava found themselves aboard the newly refurbished USS Harmony, its sleek corridors a testament to the latest in human and Klingon engineering. As they made their way to the bridge, crew members of both species nodded respectfully, their eyes following the pair with a mix of curiosity and admiration. Captain Lorak greeted them as they entered, his stoic Vulcan features betraying a hint of approval. "Commanders, welcome aboard. We are en route to our first destination, Zeta Station." Greg raised an eyebrow. "The trade hub? That's quite the statement for our first stop." "Indeed, Wady," Lorak replied. "Starfleet and the Klingon High Council believe it will provide an ideal platform to showcase your unique partnership." As the Harmony dropped out of warp, Zeta Station loomed before them, a massive structure teeming with ships of all shapes and sizes. The station's myriad lights twinkled against the backdrop of space, a beacon of commerce and diplomacy. Upon docking, Greg and Ava were immediately thrust into a whirlwind of activity. The station was abuzz with preparations for a major interstellar trade conference, and their arrival had not gone unnoticed. As they made their way through the crowded promenade, Greg felt Ava's hand slip into his. The simple gesture, so natural to them now, caused a ripple of reaction among the diverse alien crowds. A Vulcan ambassador raised an eyebrow, while a group of Andorians whispered furiously among themselves. "I believe we've caused quite a stir," Greg murmured, squeezing Ava's hand gently. Ava's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Good. Let them see what true partnership looks like." Their first official event was a formal reception in the station's grand atrium. As they entered, the hum of conversation died down, all eyes turning to the human Klingon couple. Greg straightened his back, feeling the weight of countless gazes upon them. An Andorian diplomat approached, his antennae twitching with barely concealed curiosity. "Commander Taylor, Commander Ava," he said, his voice tinged with a mix of respect and uncertainty. "Your presence here is most unexpected." Before Greg could respond, the station's lighting flickered ominously. A wave of concerned murmurs rippled through the crowd. Suddenly, the temperature began to rise, the once comfortable atrium growing uncomfortably warm. Greg exchanged a worried glance with Ava, their instincts immediately on alert. "Something's wrong," Ava growled, her hand instinctively moving to where her batleth would normally be. The station's emergency klaxons blared to life, drowning out the panicked cries of the assembled diplomats. A voice crackled over the intercom, strained and urgent. "Attention all personnel and visitors. We are experiencing a critical malfunction in our life support systems. Please remain calm and proceed to your designated evacuation areas." Greg's mind raced, years of Starfleet training kicking in. "This is no malfunction," he said to Ava, his voice low and urgent. "We need to find Kalara and get to the station's control center." As if summoned by his words, Kalara appeared through the throng of panicking diplomats, her face set in a determined scowl. "Saboteurs," she spat, I overheard the security team. They've lost control of the environmental systems. Greg nodded, his expression grim. We need to coordinate with station security, evacuate the civilians, and track down these extremists before they... His words were cut short as the gravity plating beneath their feet suddenly failed. Diplomats and station personnel alike began to float helplessly, adding to the chaos. Ava grabbed onto a nearby pillar, anchoring herself. We must split up, she called out. Kalara, take a team and head for the central hub. Gregory and I will assist with the evacuation. As Kalara pushed off towards a group of security officers, Greg and Ava made their way to the nearest turbo lift, using their zero-G training to navigate the weightless environment. As the doors hissed shut behind them, Greg tapped the control panel. Emergency override, he commanded. Take us to... The lift shuddered violently, cutting off mid-ascent. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Greg felt Ava's presence beside him, her breathing steady despite the situation. Gregory, she said, her voice tight. We are not alone. As his eyes adjusted to the dim emergency lighting, Greg saw what Ava had noticed. Huddled in the corner of the lift was an Orion woman, her green skin glistening with sweat, her face contorted in pain. Help, she gasped. The baby. It's coming. Greg and Ava shared a look of disbelief. Trapped in a malfunctioning turbolift, with the station in chaos around them, they now faced a challenge neither their Starfleet nor Klingon training had prepared them for. Well, Greg said, a nervous laugh escaping his lips, I suppose this is one way to showcase our partnership. Ava nodded, her expression a mix of grit and apprehension. Indeed. Let us hope our combined knowledge is sufficient for the task at hand. As they moved to assist the Orion woman, the lift creaked ominously. Outside, the sounds of panic and chaos continued to grow. Greg and Ava knew that the next few hours would test them in ways they had never imagined, pushing the boundaries of their partnership and potentially reshaping the future of interstellar relations. With a shared nod of understanding, they turned their attention to the task at hand, ready to face whatever challenges the universe had in store for them. With a shared nod of understanding, Greg and Ava turned their attention to the task at hand, ready to face whatever challenges the universe had in store for them. Little did they know that their next mission would test the limits of their partnership in diplomacy skills in ways they could never have imagined. Months after their harrowing experience on Zeta Station, Greg and Ava found themselves aboard the USS Harmony, entering the treacherous expanse of Zindy space. The ship's advanced cloaking technology, a testament to human-Klingon collaboration, allowed them to navigate the region undetected. Greg stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the display as the stars streaked by. How's our cloak holding up? He asked, glancing at the tactical officer. Stable, Commander, the officer replied. No sign of detection. Ava approached, her brow furrowed. I do not like this sneaking about, she growled softly. It feels dishonorable. Greg nodded, understanding her discomfort. I know, but it's necessary. The Zindy are still wary of both humans and Klingons. We need to approach carefully. As they neared the Zindy homeworld, an unexpected obstacle appeared on their sensors. A massive energy field surrounded the planet, impenetrable to their scanners and communication systems. Full stop, Greg ordered. He exchanged a worried look with Ava. We can't approach unannounced. Not like this. Captain Lorak's voice cut through the tension. Agreed. Prepare to decloak and hail the Zindy. As the USS Harmony shimmered into view, the response was immediate and hostile. A fleet of Zindy vessels surrounded them, weapons charged and locked on. We're being hailed, the communications officer announced. A stern-faced Zindy reptilian appeared on the screen. This is Commander Shran of the Zindy Defense Force. Your cloaked approach is considered an act of aggression. Explain yourselves or be destroyed. Greg stepped forward, his voice calm despite the dire situation. Commander Shran, I'm Greg Taylor of the United Federation of Planets. We come on a diplomatic mission seeking to improve relations between our peoples. Shran's eyes narrowed. A likely story. Your ship's capability to penetrate our space undetected only proves the threat you pose. Ava moved to Greg's side, her presence a steadying force. We mean you no harm, she said. her Klingon features drawing surprise from the Zindy commander. Our cloaking technology was merely a precaution, given the history between our peoples. Greg saw an opportunity in Shran's momentary confusion. Commander, we understand your caution. To prove our sincerity, my partner and I propose coming aboard your vessel to discuss our mission in person. Kalara, who had been silently observing, stepped forward. Commanders, I must object. The risk is too great. Greg turned to her, his expression resolute. The risk of doing nothing is greater. We need to build trust, and this is the way to do it. Ava nodded in agreement. We will face this challenge together, as we always have. Minutes later, Greg and Ava found themselves in a shuttle, approaching the imposing Zindy command ship. As they neared, a tractor beam seized control, pulling them into a vast hangar bay. The shuttle doors opened, revealing a contingent of Zindy security forces led by Commander Shran himself. Greg and Ava stepped out, unarmed, their hands raised in a gesture of peace. Shran's voice was cold as he addressed them. You will be escorted to a secure meeting room. Any attempt at deception or aggression will be met with immediate force. As they walked through the corridors of the Zindy ship, Greg couldn't help but marvel at the advanced technology surrounding them. Ava, meanwhile, kept her eyes focused on their escorts, her warrior's instincts on high alert. They entered a large circular room where the Zindy Council awaited them. Representatives of all 5 Zindy species sat around a curved table, their expressions ranging from open hostility to wary curiosity. Greg took a deep breath, acutely aware that the fate of their mission, and possibly the future of human Klingon-Zindy relations, rested on what happened in the next few moments. He felt Ava's presence beside him, solid and unwavering, and drew strength from their bond. Honored members of the Zindy Council, Greg began, his voice steady and clear. We come before you today not as representatives of our individual species, but as living proof of what can be achieved when we set aside our differences and work together. Ava stepped forward, her voice joining Greg's in perfect harmony. Our presence here, a human and a Klingon, united in purpose and in life, is testament to the possibilities that lie in cooperation and understanding. The council members shifted in their seats, exchanging glances. The tension in the room was palpable, years of mistrust and conflict hanging heavy in the air. As Greg prepared to continue, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship, cutting through the tense atmosphere like a knife. Commander Shran's communicator chirped urgently. His face paled as he listened to the report. There's a critical failure in our power core, he announced, his voice tight with concern. If we can't contain it, it could destroy not only this ship, but a significant portion of our fleet. Greg and Ava exchanged a quick glance, a silent communication born of their years together. Greg stepped forward, addressing Shran and the council. Commander, we have experience with a wide range of technologies. Please allow us to help. For a moment, the room was silent, save for the blaring alarms. Then, almost imperceptibly, Shran nodded. Follow me, he said, his voice gruff but tinged with a hint of desperation. As they raced towards the engineering section, Greg's mind was already racing, combining his knowledge of human and Klingon engineering principles. Beside him, Ava moved with purpose, her Klingon strength and endurance ready to be put to the test. They burst into the engineering bay, greeted by chaos as Zindy engineers struggled to contain the cascading system failures. Greg immediately moved to a control panel, his fingers flying over the alien interface as he assessed the situation. The containment field is collapsing, he called out. We need to reroute power from the auxiliary systems to reinforce it. Ava was already in motion, her powerful frame easily moving aside a damaged power conduit. Gregory, I can reach the manual override for the auxiliary power grid. As they worked in tandem, Zindy engineers looked on in a mixture of surprise and growing respect. Greg's innovative problem-solving meshed seamlessly with Ava's raw strength and perseverance. Together, they bridged the gap between their advanced theoretical knowledge and the practical realities of the failing Zindy systems. Minutes ticked by, each second bringing them closer to disaster. Greg's forehead beaded with sweat as he raced against time, his mind working overtime to adapt human and Klingon solutions to Zindy technology. Ava's voice cut through the din. Gregory, The power fluctuations are stabilizing. The containment field is holding. A cheer went up from the Zindy engineers as the alarms finally fell silent. Greg sagged against the console, exhausted but triumphant. Ava moved to his side, her hand finding his in a gesture that had become second nature to them. Commander Shran approached, his expression a mix of relief and grudging respect. "It seems we owe you our gratitude," he said, his earlier hostility noticeably diminished. As they made their way back to the council chambers, Greg could feel a shift in the atmosphere. The Zindy they passed no longer looked at them with suspicion, but with curiosity and even a hint of admiration. Entering the chamber, they found the council members in heated discussion. As Greg and Ava took their places, Zindy Primate Counselor Thera raised her hand for silence. "We have witnessed something extraordinary today," she began, her eyes fixed on Greg and Ava. "Not only the technical skill to save our ship, but a level of cooperation between species that we had thought impossible." Greg stepped forward, sensing an opportunity. "Counselors, what you've seen today is just the beginning of what we can achieve together. We came here to propose a partnership, one that could benefit all our peoples." Ava joined him, her voice strong and clear. "The galaxy is full of challenges that no single species can face alone. Together we can be stronger than we ever could be apart." As they spoke, outlining their vision for cooperation, Greg could see the seeds of possibility taking root in the eyes of the council members. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but in this moment, on the bridge between mistrust and understanding, hope began to flourish. The fate of their mission, and perhaps the future of the galaxy, hung in the balance as Greg and Ava prepared to take their next step into the unknown, their partnership a beacon of what could be achieved when different worlds came together. When different worlds came together in harmony, the Zindy Council's chambers buzzed with renewed energy as discussions of cooperation and alliance filled the air. Greg and Ava stood at the center of it all, their presence a living testament to the power of unity. As they engaged in spirited debates and negotiations, a sudden alert cut through the room. "Commanders," Captain Lorik's voice crackled over the comm system. "Long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet approaching. It's the Vorta Armada." The chamber fell silent, the weight of this new threat settling heavily on all present. Greg and Ava exchanged a glance, their minds already racing with tactical possibilities. "We need to act fast," Greg said, addressing the council. "This is the moment to put our newfound alliance to the test." Zindy Primate Counselor Thera nodded gravely. "Agreed. We shall commit our forces to this joint defense." Within hours, a combined human-Klingon Zindy fleet assembled in orbit around the Zindy homeworld. The USS Harmony, now integrated with cutting-edge Zindy technology, took its position at the forefront of the defensive line. On the bridge of the Harmony, Greg and Ava worked in tandem, their movements synchronized as they prepared for the impending battle. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the vast expanse of space before them. In the distance, the first signs of the Vorta fleet appeared, a menacing array of warships that seemed to blot out the stars. "All ships, battle formation Delta," Greg ordered, his voice calm despite the tension that gripped the bridge. "Remember your training. We're stronger together than we ever were apart." Ava stood beside him, her Klingon features set in a mask of purpose. "Today we fight not just for our own peoples, but for a future where we stand united against any threat." The Vorta fleet drew closer, their weapons charging. Suddenly, the space between the two armadas erupted in a dazzling display of weapons fire. The Harmony rocked as it absorbed the first volley, its shields holding strong thanks to the integrated Zindy reinforcements. Greg's fingers flew across the tactical console, coordinating the Alliance's response. Klingon warships surged forward, their disruptors blazing, while Zindy cruisers provided covering fire with their powerful energy weapons. Human vessels darted between larger ships, their agility allowing them to strike at vulnerable points in the Vorta formation. Despite their seamless cooperation, the sheer numbers of the Vorta fleet began to push back the Allied forces. Greg gritted his teeth, searching for a weakness in the enemy's strategy. "Ava," he called out, "we need to try something unconventional. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" A fierce grin spread across Ava's face. The Zindy telepathic interface. it could give us the edge we need. Without hesitation, they activated the newly installed Zindy technology. As their minds melded, an unprecedented level of coordination flowed through the Allied fleet. Ships moved as one, anticipating each other's actions with uncanny precision. The tide of battle began to turn, but a new threat emerged from an unexpected quarter. Alarms blared across the Harmony's bridge as reports flooded in of an attack on the Zindy command center. "It's Gurat and his isolationist faction," Commander Shran's voice crackled over the comm. "They're trying to disable our planetary defenses." Greg's mind raced, weighing their options. They couldn't afford to divert forces from the space battle, but leaving the command center vulnerable was not an option. "Kalara," Greg called out, "take a joint security team and secure the command center. We'll hold the line up here." As Kalara led her team to confront the internal threat, Greg and Ava redoubled their efforts in space. Through their mental link, a bold plan began to take shape. "Commander Shran," Greg communicated through the telepathic interface, "we need your expertise for a special operation. We're going to use the Harmony's enhanced cloaking device to slip behind enemy lines." Shran's reply came swiftly, tinged with excitement. "Understood, commanders. My team stands ready." As the main battle raged on, a small task force led by the cloaked Harmony maneuvered behind the Vorta fleet. With surgical precision, they struck at the enemy's command structure, sowing chaos in their ranks. Meanwhile, in the Zindy command center, Kalara and her team engaged in fierce combat with Gurat's isolationists. The sound of energy weapons and hand-to-hand combat echoed through the corridors as they fought to regain control. Kalara found herself face-to-face with Gurat, the leader of the isolationist faction. As they grappled, Kalara saw not just an enemy, but a misguided individual clinging to old fears and prejudices. In a split-second decision, she chose to subdue rather than kill him, her actions reflecting the change in her own perspectives since joining the Alliance. Back in space, the disruption caused by Shran's strike team had thrown the Vorta fleet into disarray. Greg and Ava seized the moment, coordinating a final decisive maneuver through their mental link. "All ships, execute pattern Omega," Greg commanded. The Allied fleet moved as one, enveloping the remaining Vorta ships in a tactical net of crossfire. Trapped and outmaneuvered, the Vorta commander realized the futility of their position. A tense moment passed before a transmission came through. The Vorta fleet was surrendering. As the last echoes of battle faded, Greg and Ava stood on the bridge of the Harmony, their hands clasped tightly. They looked out at the assembled fleet, human, Klingon, and Zindy ships floating side by side, and knew that this was just the beginning of a new era of cooperation and understanding. The victory against the Vorta threat had done more than just ensure their immediate safety. It had forged bonds between three civilizations that had once viewed each other with suspicion and hostility. As they prepared to dock with the Zindy station for debriefing, Greg and Ava knew that their greatest challenges and their greatest triumphs still lay ahead.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.